All right, welcome, my friends. It's Armor of Truth Live number 360. I guess you could say we've come full circle. All right, well, this information will change the world. That's what they say, and let's find out whether or not that's true. Let's find out what they mean by that. I mean, there are so many things going on right now that, you know, there's this return to religion. There's the idea that there's a new awakening. Some say it's a revival. The problem is, return to what religion? What kind of religion? What is this an awakening to? Well, it's let's start out with this piece. Which sets us up. Look, we're going to be in this show, we're going to be dealing with ghosts, spirits, the occult being taught to kids by their mental health counselors. And, of course, we're going to get around back to this. There is a new UFO whistleblower, and you've got to hear what he says about his experience. It's so obvious. It's very plain to see what kind of awakening we're having. We're having. Listen to this. This is Dylan Spratt. He's from the ATL. But listen to the premise for this show.
It was August 9th, 1969, a hot summer morning. The sunrise would cast a light on one of the darkest chapters in Los Angeles history.
I don't think that any of us who were there, we were the first television crew on the scene.
I know the audio is terrible on this. I don't know why it's in one channel, but just so you know that nothing's wrong with your system or mine. This is just how the video is, so let's bear it.
We had no idea what we were walking into.
That morning, Al Wyman was an ambitious 29-year-old reporter for ABC.
This thing is a mess. Anyway, this is they're talking about the Sharon Tate killings by Manson and his group. And anyway, what Dylan Spratt is doing here, he's decided to go to the grave of Sharon Tate and talk to her. Rather not have that music.
And I believe somewhere over here is where Miss Sharon Tate is buried. Now, preparing for this session, like I just reading up on the case, man. I mean, this was way before I was born. Some of y'all, a lot of y'all might remember when this happened. But I just didn't realize how gruesome. Like, oh my gosh. And like, I've always heard the name Roman Polanski.
It's worth mentioning here, too, that Dylan Spratt, he has a profession of faith as well. So that's... We'll just keep that in mind.
But I didn't really just put two and two together, y'all. And again, put that on my age, put that on my knowledge. It has running water.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
It just feels real peaceful.
Cemetery.
That is dope.
It's a grotto. Okay, so what Dylan Spratt does is he runs the spirit box or a radio or an app. Usually it's just an app, which is incredible that people trust these apps. But and asks questions, and whatever comes back is assumed to be from the spirit. I know you guys know how this works.
What up, James Patrick?
All right, he's hitting his chatters now.
But literally right over here, the Daly family of Miss Sharon Tate Polanski. It became hard to breathe. And to me, that lets me know that there is someone or something in this vicinity. I don't know if they're trying to come through.
Well, let's keep this in mind. He went here. The purpose for going here was to conjure spirits. Right? So I'm certainly not going to be the one to sit here and tell you that, oh, that's impossible. That's just silly. No, I think you can do that. I don't think it's certainly not the person you think it is. Right? The devil is a liar. Right? He's the father of lies. He can do nothing but lie. In fact, when he lies, he just does what's natural to himself. And so all of his minions, we would loosely refer to them as demons, do the same. Why would you ever trust anything like this? And why would you go somewhere speaking into the darkness and asking something from the other side, come talk to me, come ride with me, whatever. And we'll have another one of these instances later in the UFO segment where the people who are attempting to communicate or connect get sick. They fall ill.
I'm out of breath from I didn't even walk nowhere. Just all of a sudden, it became hard to breathe. And to me, that lets me know that there is someone or something in this vicinity.
All right, that's the first thing, because we also have a segment tonight that is about the difference between facts and truth. You have to know the difference between facts and truth and what the hierarchy between facts and truth actually is. You hear lots of assertions, lots of things offered as facts, but none of it is in service of the true reality, the truth. It is in service of a false reality.
I don't know if they're trying to come through, but it's definitely something here. Sharon, are you here?
This is a good example also of cognitive bias, where you go into a place saying, I'm going to go talk to ghosts here. And so any and everything that happens in that place at that time, you assume is a ghost or a spirit. That's a cognitive bias. Certainly, it's not scientific. I don't think Dallin Spratt is trying to be scientific. I think he does what he does for his reasons, and he must enjoy it, and his audience, which is pretty large, enjoys it too. But there's the point to all this is there is a wave now. I mean, it's always been here, but there is a wave happening right now, and it seems oddly enough to be washing in with the Trump wave. It's getting even bigger. There is certainly a revival and an awakening happening, but it's certainly not what? It's certainly not coming from the realm of truth.
Can you tell me your name? It just lets me know who I'm talking to if I can hear you say your name.
Okay, I'll go right here. Now, for those of you who may not know, this technique is called spirit box. It's not really an EVP. It's a spirit box session where it used to be done with a radio that would scan the airwaves and then stop at each station for about a quarter of a second or so, and as it scanned through the band, it would pick up parts of words, parts of songs, and then sometimes it sounds like words. And so the assumption is that the spirits somehow are able to manipulate these waves and speak to you through this equipment. What Dallin Spratt is using here is going to be an app that scans internet radio or any kind of broadcast, I guess, that's being, it's not technically a broadcast, but any kind of live, any kind of stream that's on the internet, and does the same thing, just not on the airwaves. So that's the technique.
Like, do you feel like for me, instance, I came because I heard the story, but getting here, it became uberly real, and it changed my perspective of the conversation.
Talking about
do you feel
uberly
like
real.
A lot of people come here just to glorify the story. Incredibly popular. Yeah. So how does it feel being remembered 50, 60 years later? You said that man robbed y'all of life. Yeah, he did. Listen, Sharon, I wasn't gonna go there, but if you wanna go in there, I'm with it. So before that happened, what were you the most excited for in life? I said you're gonna cry. You always felt like what? Sharon, it seemed like you were just living the dream during that time. How was life for you leading up to that night? Because you lost everything? Do you have any regrets?
So there you go. This is in fact become quite common. Wow, I haven't checked in on Dallin Spratt in a while. Summer, you'll find this amazing. I think the last time we checked in on his channel, he was. He wasn't anywhere. He wasn't close to 100,000 yet. But he's look at this. He's up to almost 200,000. You can't see it there, but he's up to almost 200,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel now. And this video, that's it. And he was also on a show. I forget what, Ghost Brothers. I don't know what it was. It was maybe it's listed here. No, but you can, anyway, you get the point. It's very popular. Now, put a pin in the board on that one. Now let's go to the next story here, which is one that Summer shared with me earlier today, and it is this. California mental health services, professionals, or whatever they are, for children are promoting the occult. This comes from Alex Newman, the Newman Report. Let's see, there you go. So it is an app that's backed by the state of California, by the mental health agencies, and it's targeting children, vulnerable children, I would assume, or maybe they don't have to be vulnerable necessarily, right? I guess they're vulnerable in the sense that they're struggling with some kind of mental health issue. It seems like all of the kids are today, though. But it targets vulnerable children with controversial propaganda involving the occult, New Age, homosexuality, transgenderism, fornication, and everything that, everything that's a sin. It attacks biblical principles and precepts. Now, under the guise of helping California teens with self-esteem and emotions, this new program is known as Soluna. And it features blatantly pagan and occult themes from magicians and tarot cards to channeling, quote, that high priestess, and touting lesbian characters. The controversial topics are ubiquitous on the platform. Let's see. Here we go. Called Soluna. There we go. There it is. Real help, real talk, zero cost. Of course it's free, right? It's going to be free. It's going to be free because that makes it easy for kids to get. One of the lessons that they have on here is called Tarot and Tidings. It's a holiday tarot spread to protect your peace. It says, quote, this season the cards are stacked in your favor. This holiday tarot spread holds the secret to boundary-setting magic, so they're not even hiding it, meaning less chaos and more clarity. Of course, the Bible calls this an abomination. The Bible calls what Dallin Spratt was doing an abomination. There are only a couple things that God has labeled an abomination in the text of Scripture. Contacting the dead or these beings is one, and the other one is homosexuality. Yeah, I have to be careful on YouTube with that. Well, the Tarot and Tidings segment's first tarot card, as the state's mental health scheme for children calls it, informs the impressionable victims that, quote, you hold the power to create your own reality. There you go. It also urges the children to protect your energy. What? Isn't this crazy? And it says, get ready to cast a spell. I mean, you almost think it has to be a joke, right? I mean, this is just too over the top, isn't it? Well, the next card in the tarot series features a high priestess, where students are taught to channel that high priestess. When family members ask cringy questions during the holidays, it then calls on students to embrace the hermit energy, because it's where your magic grows. Embrace the hermit energy. So the hermit energy would be self-isolation, lonely. Another lesson in the mental health app is called Coming Out to Immigrant Parents. Parents' point of view. In this audio, you'll hear the story of Olga, an immigrant parent, and her queer daughter, Nina. The slide declares before dissing cultural values and promoting homosexuality. All right, well, another lesson teaching children about physical intimacy encourages fornication. Quote, taking that next step with someone is special. Or taking that next step with someone special is a big deal. It can be an exciting way to deepen your connection. They're talking to children. It says, quote, ready to get spicy and safe? Let's chat. So remember, we hear this all the time, right? We just want you to be safe. Let's stay safe. We're all in this together. The reason that the LA mayor doesn't want people to go back to their property that's burned out is because we need to keep you safe. Yeah, there's that annoying big brother. Well, and here, so what do they mean by safe? Well, here's an example of what they mean by safe. As long as there is... So they ask for consent. There's no way to know, right, if a parent was involved in that consent and this idea of protection. Alex Newman writes, in short, as long as there is what the app calls consent and protection from babies and venereal diseases, the state scheme urges its victims to do whatever you're comfortable with. And then the app's going to make you comfortable with all these things. It even encourages children to consider whether they want to be monogamous or polyamorous, that would be having numerous partners at the same time, as if that's normal, as if that's healthy, as if that's going to result in a fulfilled life. It's an attack on traditional culture, right, for sure. In a lesson supposedly teaching children how to be their authentic self, Soluna features a discussion between a student refusing to participate in the family Thanksgiving. The reason given is that the Indians were supposedly mistreated by evil white men. This is, of course, a total misrepresentation of the real Thanksgiving. The true history of the holiday, we'll skip that part. We know about Thanksgiving. But the app seems calculated to undermine biblical religion and to inoculate children against the Bible, too. In an exercise called Thought Shaker, it's supposed to boost confidence and self-esteem. Teens are given bizarre slogans such as, everything is temporary, I'm good enough, I love who I am, I'm worthy of a happy and fulfilling life, and more and more. Apparently, there's no place in the program for biblical precepts such as all fall short of the glory of God, all have sinned, that all deserve eternal punishment for their sin, and everyone needs Christ as Savior to be redeemed. Instead, children are taught to believe that they are perfect as they are, with no need for a Redeemer, and certainly no need for repentance, no need for guilt or shame at all. Remember, here we like to make it very clear and remind ourselves and everyone that guilt and shame are guardrails. When you feel one or the other, it means you're supposed to go the other way. You're supposed, so in this worldview, you're supposed to ignore guilt and shame. Whatever you like is good and it's right because you want it. Now, how that, if you follow that to its logical conclusion, of course, you can see how that would be completely crazy, right? Does the pedo is what they like good and right? Because the positive self-talk meditations in Soluna are messages that basically place the self in the position of ultimate power, right? Remember Carl Trueman's book. This is the triumph of the self. This age, the age of the self, we could call it. So it ignores a creator. It ignores the creator. One doesn't even exist. In fact, you are the creator of your reality. It ignores that a sin nature is even possible. One official in California has been sounding the alarm about this, about one of these in the something called the Trevor Space, for pointing to its witchcraft club, its pagan club, guilt and secrets club, and more. Also, communities for furries, regressors. These are people who identify as babies, and even a gay man club with the tagline, "Let's talk about boys." I mean, gosh, it's so gross. Well, the state authorities in California are using taxpayer money to fund this thing and other programs like it, and also to promote them on radio stations, advertisements, promoting them in schools and even in movie theaters. It's the California Department of Health, the California Department of Health Care Services, and they're bragging about their platform as part of a nearly $5 billion investment in youth behavioral health. Now, the truth is, kids today are suffering and they're struggling because of the public education system, because of the culture. CDC data show that 1 in 3 high school girls have seriously contemplated self-harm. But the solution, according to these healthcare professionals, the solution is more of this type of indoctrination to, I don't know how you justify this. I imagine they would say something like, well, Christians believe crazy things too. Muslims believe things like this. I don't know how they justify it. So it seems like it's just another part of that wave, right? It represents a horrific abuse of kids, horrific abuse of taxpayer money. I mean, the damage that this is doing. Amazing. And now this. I want to speed him up just a bit here. That'll work. Now, Tim Burchett is representative from a congressional rep from Tennessee. And he's a good enough guy. Seems like a great guy, kind of guy you might want to play golf with or something. But he is completely bought in to the UFO narrative. I'm going to show you a couple things here tonight that are going to just hold on to your hat.
More on all of this, we're bringing in News Nation special correspondent Ross Coulthard. Ross, it is always so good to see you. Let's start with what Representative Burchett says that an admiral told him, an extremely fast-moving underwater UFO. What do you make of this? How does this line up with accounts that you have heard? And do you think we'll see more people in high-level positions coming out with these accounts of UFOs?
G'day, Natasha. Lovely to speak to you again. Look, I've heard this story before. I've heard multiple accounts of objects moving at ridiculous speeds underwater. I've actually spoken to submariners in both the American military and also the Australian military who've told me that they've recorded objects moving at over 1,000 kilometres an hour underwater. That's faster than the speed of sound in the air. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. There are weird, anomalous objects now being acknowledged by the United States government, and we have this weird disconnect where, yes, they admit that these objects are real, whatever they are, but they refuse to reveal the secrets that they have, which we know they have behind all of this. And obviously last week we went very public with a major story where we revealed a whistleblower who actually flatly alleged that the US government is fully aware of these UAPs, these unidentified anomalous phenomena, that they are some form of non-human craft. Hell of a claim, but he went public and he was backed by multiple colleagues, and the silence from the Pentagon on this in the last few days has been deafening.
The silence is deafening, right? Because if they don't say anything about it, well, that means they're hiding something, right? Again, facts and truth and cognitive bias. And this photo here, this video, we're going to look at that in a minute. This is the new evidence, right? It's the egg. It's known as the egg. It's a new UAP. And I'll show you too. We'll just get over here in a minute, and I'll show you just some of the strategic deception that is more than obvious. You can see it in the rhetoric and the language. So Ross Coulthard, just so you know who this person is, he's an Australian investigative journalist. He's an author. He's a filmmaker. He's been in media for over 35 years. Broadcast television, newspaper journalism. He's an Aussie, I think. I don't know if he's a Kiwi. He says Australian. Yeah, so he's an Aussie. Worked with prominent media outlets like the Sydney Morning Herald. So he's been in the business. But in recent years, Coulthard has focused on UFOs. Today, we're calling them unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP. His 2021 book, titled In Plain Sight, An Investigation into UFOs and Impossible Science, is about this topic. Some people praise his thorough research. I don't. He is overly credulous and he is anything but critical in his approach. In other words, Ross Coulthart is a true believer, and he goes out to find the stories that support his presupposition, that confirm his cognitive bias. In his 1994 report on the Australian Secret Intelligence Service, the ASIS, there we go with the connection. He alleged that the agency held extensive files on Australian citizens, a claim that was later investigated and denied by official inquiry. I don't know. That sounds like that could be good. That could be right. The inquiry concluded that his report was skewed towards the false and lacked factual accuracy. Anyway, his recent reporting on UAPs has been met with skepticism. In December 2023, Australian skeptics awarded Coulthart the Bent Spoon Award for what they described as uncritical journalism concerning his belief that governments are covering up wreckage of downed extraterrestrial spacecraft and the bodies of their pilots. He's had a long career and done some things in media for 35 years, but let's just see what you think. This is the new whistleblower. This is the one, is a chopper pilot who was the one, he was involved in moving that egg around. Let's just get started before we go any farther here. I want to hear a little bit of the opening so you get the background. Question, we did this video for you. You know, where go ahead. All right, so he's going to be, he was referring to David Grush there. And we'll just remind you about this. I'll give you this little tip about where this comes from.
They are indeed of non-human origin. This report is the first evidence it might be true. Those are the explosive allegations from a former intelligence officer tonight in a whistleblower complaint that the Inspector General is taking very seriously.
For the very first time, the world is about to hear from a former high-level U.S. intelligence officer who says the government has some of the unidentified craft in its possession. In recent years, Congress starting an official U.S. government unidentified aerial phenomena task force. And now in a News Nation exclusive, David Grush, an Air Force veteran, former member of that task force, is formally blowing the whistle on secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before.
Okay, now this little part, I just want to play this for this little 30, 40-second clip right here. Priming.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the U.S. defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes.
What conclusion did you come to on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. Non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
Do you have an alarm?
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No.
Is he having a laugh?
I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse.
You having a laugh?
People started confiding in me. They approached me, and they provided me documents and other proof.
Hey, you're having a laugh?
Grush alleges the U.S. government has recovered non-human craft for decades. He's filed a whistleblower complaint saying he gave what he calls the classified proof to Congress and the intelligence community inspector general. News Nation has confirmed David Grush's credentials and resume. We've not seen or verified the alleged proof he says he's provided to investigators.
We've not seen or verified the alleged proof he says he's provided to investigators.
He says he can't show us the proof for national security reasons. He also tells us he's not seen photos of the alleged craft himself, but has talked extensively with other intelligence officials who have.
Are you having a laugh?
Lies. Can't show us the proof. Conspiracy theories.
For national security reasons.
Junk science. Quackery.
He's not seen photos of the alleged craft himself.
Quackery.
We've not seen or verified the alleged proof.
And wholesale fiction.
But has talked extensively with other intelligence officials.
We control them.
Who have.
And we can remake them.
Yes, so there you go. So there's the idea, right? It's this is as deep as it ever gets. This is as far as it ever goes. By the way, I'm just completely distracted now. Like we just all the viewers just went from. I mean, I don't know what's going on. Hopefully we're still on. And also, I just so everybody understands in the chat, and I know when my wife's birthday is, I was just trying to say, I didn't think it would even come in there yet. Is it putting that in the chat? Is that what I don't understand? I don't understand what's going on. I got a text from Summer reminding me that her birthday is February 1st. I know that. I was just trying to do something. Okay, there it is. Yeah. Oh yeah. So the chat bot is working. I didn't know the chat bot was working. So that confused me. So. Okay. Sorry about that. I just thought that I would say happy birthday early. I know when your birthday is. I just wanted it to be running in that chat for a few days. Sorry about that. Oh man, we got connection issues and I don't know what to do. All right. I'll just press forward.
And UAP.
No, no, Crystal. I wasn't complaining to anybody or anything. I was just confused because Summer was reminding me that her birthday is February 1st. So I was just. It just distracted me. It just caught me off because I didn't think it would be a problem to just say happy birthday for a few days, like for 3 or 4 days, But anyway, yeah, I think this is just crashing and burning. We'll just have to. I'm supposed to do a video with Daniel tomorrow morning at 11:30 Eastern time on this channel, and so. I'm just going to shut this down and do that because I really like this topic. I mean, I don't like the UFO narrative, but I think it's got there's a lot of meat in there where, I get issues. It's just this is a train wreck all the way around. Stop it and talk a little bit so we don't get the copyright stuff. I just wanted you guys to hear this about his emotions. I thought that would be interesting. I thought that would be cool to check out. He goes on to talk about the psionics team, which is just psychic. That's the remote viewers. Again, here, the part, where Dallin Spratt said he went when he got there and was conjuring and he was calling out to these spirits. He started feeling tired and ill. So one of the I don't know. It's a train wreck. I'm just distracted now. Sorry, guys. I just think I'm going to just can this and move on. something else. Yeah, he just he goes on and says everyone knows there's more than to reality than what we're being told, and so it just becomes more of the same stuff.
It's going to be an ontological shock. I think it's going to be
So they give an example of one of the guys who was calling in. Let's see, I'll go up to that. Where he was calling in, and this sounds like the Stephen Greer CE5 protocol where you meditate and call in UFOs. Pretty crazy because it's all a wild assumption, right? He's controlling here. Ross Coulthart will believe just about anything, and I think this is an interesting part here at the very end. What this new whistleblower says: "By our fruits," is his message from Matthew. Really doesn't have anything to do with your ability to hunt down aliens. Why would you, if you don't believe the God who revealed those scriptures, you think God is this feminine energy or whatever, why would you quote it? Okay. Earlier he was talking about, we heard about this, I don't remember, general who now I know I just saved like a ton of stuff in these bookmarks and they're not there. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I just wanted to run through some of these so you could see just how generally how it goes on. Yeah, there we go. Out on Twitter. Mick West is a good guy to keep up with, to keep a clear head on all this stuff. Mick West he's a debunker. He says Jake Barber, the UFO crash retrieval whistleblower, bonded with a loving, non-human intelligence. Unfortunately, this isn't really the type of whistleblowing that's needed to prove NHI. Now, I think it's important here, if you notice, in the late 40s was really just about, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Here's Tulsi Gabbard talking about UFOs.
In meetings that I've had with many of you, you expressed bipartisan frustration about recent intelligence failures, as well as the lack of responsiveness to your requests for information. Whether it's the surprise October 7th Hamas terrorist attack, to the sudden takeover of Syria by Islamist extremists, failures to identify the source of COVID, anomalous health incidents, UAPs, drones, and more. If confirmed, I look forward to working with you to address these issues. In my meetings that I've had,
Stephen Greenstreet put out this tweet. It looks pretty good. The top is, that's the best footage of a UAP we've ever had, according to Ross Coulthart. And down below here is an aerostat blimp. Right. An Air Force veteran sent him this clip, so it's likely a tethered aerostat that is often retrieved by helicopters, and it would be heavy because of the payload it would be carrying. My goodness, why does that do that? There's someone who says this may sound mental, but believe me, it's not. A malevolent, a bad entity revealed themselves to me recently, not as a manifestation, but speech and presence. I knew its evil had been present for a while as demonic oppression, not possession. So, some mixed up signals. Ross Coulthart claims Jake Barber brought UFO data and imagery to Sean Kirkpatrick at the Pentagon's UFO office. Arrow. Coulthart reports that UFO data later mysteriously disappeared. Kirkpatrick was asked about it. He'd never seen this information. I don't know what Will's holding there. That looks pretty strange. Anybody remember 3 weeks ago when a career special forces bro blew up a Cybertruck full of firecrackers and propane canisters in front of a Trump hotel in Vegas? Probably not. You've probably forgotten all about that. It's because we're under a very active strategic deception. Here's Kirby talking about the drones. Here's this guy's been making the rounds.
The other third type.
This guy, Jason Sands, has been making the rounds lately, and David Icke retweeted him because he talks about encountering some reptilians.
That got mentioned on Mission was reptilians. But every time that they were mentioned, it was really quickly hushed up by whoever else was on the other end of the line. Shut up, don't say that, is what they were doing.
They don't want to talk about the reptilians.
They don't want to talk about the reptilian presence at all. They would talk about the tall whites and the grays being in the lab environments.
Tall whites and the grays. All right, then. Yeah, Ross Coulthart was probably right here when he challenged Trump's press secretary. Came out the other day and said, "Well, we've got the drone info, and it was a military or government operation, and so if that's the case, then why were all the federal and state agencies mystified for weeks about what they were? Because strategic deception. It's how it works. Now let's get back a little back into the ideological part. Carl Jung said the UFO is a technological angel. He said, I wonder if by extension that makes its occupants technological souls. No. See, again, when we're trying to think about truth, this is a category error. A soul is non-material. Technology, these two things are diametrically opposed to one another. Now, where we do see souls integrated with matter is in the human being, when God breathed life into Adam. And that's it. There is no human being that can put a soul into matter. Artificial intelligence is not a soul. It's not intelligence at all. Anyway, Pentagon warns of possible alien mothership sending probes. This is from back in December, on Christmas of last year. And of course, you see there Jeremy, Lockyer, Kenyon, Corbell. Yeah, 4 names. I think he just goes by Jeremy Corbell now. Oh, there's Bashar. Does this thing have audio?
To beginning, official interstellar object could potentially be a parent craft that releases many small probes during its close passage to Earth. You've got the Pentagon talking about the idea of a mothership going above us and sending probes down.
Somewhere near the end, middle to end of 2026, middle to beginning to the idea of 2027, somewhere in that, you will experience on your planet a major contact event. 2026, 2027 will be a major contact event happening that everyone on your planet will become aware of. So, be prepared. Allow yourselves to be true to yourselves.
This is Daryl Anka. He channels a being he calls Bashar, which is supposed to be an advanced extraterrestrial being from outside of time, essentially.
Be open, be flowing, and allow yourselves to know that when this major contact event occurs, 26, 27, it will herald in an awakening for many people on your planet, not all, but many people on your planet, to really create a new momentum heading towards a shift in your realities, individually and collectively.
So some people will go forward, some people won't. Right? It's the salvation narrative. Be flowing and be open is the advice from the extra dimension, the ultra-terrestrial being. Be open and be flowing. Are you open and flowing? Okay. And I found this tweet too: the occult origins of the UFO community, unidentified aerial phenomenon, and NHI, non-human intelligence. It's everywhere now. It's embedded into the culture, and it's I don't know. Anyway, what is being sold to the public? Ufology is the new dogmatic religion of the modern age, another belief system that further strives to separate spirit from matter.
Intelligent life. You imagine that in our space travels we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?
You don't have to go anywhere.
This is Robert Bigelow. This is the man who owned Skinwalker Ranch before the current owner, Brendan Fugel from Utah.
You can find it here.
Yeah.
This is the guy who's Senator Harry Reid's friend, who received that $22 million from the government to research werewolves and portals. They said they were researching UFOs and to protect the airspace, but they were on Skinwalker Ranch.
It's just like right under people's noses. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, so that's Robert Bigelow. And here's Robert Bigelow. Robert Bigelow, who is a big voice in this movement in the past, has said that the Greys are servants of a supreme consciousness. Well, here we have a servant of the hammer. Anyway. This person says, it's my contention that the realm of the spiritual and that of the UFO phenomenon overlap via a naturally occurring molecule hardwired to the human brain. Onwards, upwards, inwards, and beyond. As above, so below. Well, of course. Right. There's your DM. I put this one in here because I think it's funny, right? This is what I also began to think after my recent UAP experience. You're someone who's had an experience. But I think they're diverse types. Photon-based conscious beings and others, but this also is similar to what was written in the interview of Dr. Wu, Project Looking Glass. I just threw that in there too because I think it's Dr. Wu. Are you kidding me? Woo-woo. Anyway. The glowing Egyptian beings that landed in the Holloman Air Force Base were depicted with the raised serpent on their heads, just like the ancient Egyptian gods. Right. Okay. Here's the general. Let's hear what he has to say.
And
so this is why I was one of the reasons why I think this is important is because it's not just out on the fringes. This deception is coming from within the government, from within the Pentagon.
And my last assignment was involved with the UAP task force, which maybe is the most apropos.
This is an Army colonel
for this discussion.
retired.
And so, Carl, here's the million-dollar question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
You hear that in that what a weird answer, right? Of course non-human intelligence exists. God is a non-human intelligence. Angels and demons are non-human intelligence. So it's not any surprise to say that non-human intelligence exists. But in this context, he knows that what people are going to perceive is, oh, he's talking about aliens.
And so, Carl, that is quite a bold statement.
Not really.
I'm wondering,
Not really all that
curious,
bold.
how confident are you that that is true?
100%.
There's zero doubt.
Zero doubt. Exactly. See, he didn't say anything about aliens. So this is how deception really looks. Here's a segment that's 5 minutes. We won't watch that. But yeah, here's Logan Paul calling the whistleblower we just watched. Just like he said, like, how do you know that that is non-human intelligence? Which is a very good question. And this is Michael Schellenberger talking to Tucker Carlson, saying that Donald Trump knows that UFOs are non-human intelligence, and that he'll disclose the truth. Yeah, well, that's a good way to set someone up for failure. Maybe the reason that non-human intelligence are closely monitoring us now is because we're probably giving life back to an ancient enemy of theirs, also known as the artificial intelligence. Maybe it was never about the nukes. Yeah, so you can see where people's minds are. Jim Simivan, who was in the clandestine services of CIA for 25 years. So here's a guy we should listen to, right? Says there's non-human intelligence on this planet.
But I remember when it came out on that fateful day, the story was wrong. And I got a hold of Leslie and I said, it's not about $22 million and the Pentagon has a UFO program. It's about there's an entity out there. There's some kind of non-human intelligence that's living with us on this fucking planet. I'm sorry, I'm getting all wound up. That's the story. And she said they wouldn't let me run it like that. And it's still very, very difficult. So I give the New York Times a lot of credit for running this story, but for missing the big point. We're not alone, and we never have been alone.
All right, there you go. We're not alone. Never have been alone. The drone issue is a big deal, wasn't it? This is a good. The New Jersey drone incident is a good. Here goes the connection again. It's a good topic for understanding the difference between truth and facts, or Mirage Men was a 2013 documentary directed by John Lundberg, written by Mark Pilkington, and co-directed by Roland Denning. Anyway, Mirage Men suggests that there was a conspiracy by the U.S. military to fabricate UFO folklore in order to deflect attention from the classified military projects. Right? Pretty interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes they just put the truth right out there. Anybody who's unfamiliar with James Carrion's work, he's focuses on the years of 1946 and 1947, that particular time frame, because that's where the UFO consciousness really started. He uses declassified documents, related materials to present forensic historical analysis, and he proposes that a small group of U.S. intelligence personnel masterminded deception operations, strategic deception operations. By the way, if you haven't seen our video on strategic deception, where we go through all the types of it, look back in our Armor of Truth live shows. It's there. These strategic deception operations that surrounded reported UFOs for a variety of purposes, designed to create military advantages. And James Carrion's free book is called Anachronism. You can find that. Just search for it. You can find it. And he's also released now a book called The Roswell Deception. Now, James Carrion was the international head director of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, for many years. But they let him go because he tells in this little piece right here. I'll come back to that. Evidence of deception in ufology, is ubiquitous. But for some reason, you're not allowed to challenge their narrative. And now, even in the United States, Congress is promoting and protecting the ET hypothesis. That is that some UFOs are from other planets, right? From planets, not interdimensional, but from planets. That non-human intelligence, physical non-human beings, aliens, are among us on the earth. That's the ET hypothesis. They're even pushing the story that people have been killed by these aliens. The context for it all is the secret crash retrieval groups that exist or existed in the Pentagon. Problem is, there's never been any evidence that the declassified videos or the reports of the pilots or other members of the military were anything more than technical anomalies, visual illusions, or advanced technology, actual earthbound technology. A crash retrieval program surely existed in the 1950s and 60s and through to present day, but the assumption that they were tasked to retrieve crashed UFOs is an unnecessary leap. It makes perfect sense that we would have crash retrieval teams who retrieve our own crashed military experimental aircraft so that classification remains intact, so that no one outside the chain of command could get access to the equipment and send it off to our enemies. Likewise, there is surely a crash retrieval program that watches for and rushes to retrieve any crashed vehicle from foreign adversaries. The militaries of nations have always had the latest, most advanced technologies. The need to stay ahead of one's adversaries is crucial to the survival of a nation. So, crash retrieval and secrecy would be expected. It would also be well within the realm of expectation that military leaders, propagandists, and PSYOPs units would deploy an alien UFO narrative and perhaps encourage or even fund certain authors, journalists, and grifters, Ross Coulthart, and make it easy for them to propagate their favorite UFO and alien theories. It makes sense, too, that they would actively deceive these true believers by releasing declassified documents and videos or by placing certain stories in the media, knowing that the true believers like Coulthart and the grifters like Coulthart will always latch on to a new... In fact, the case of Richard Doty explains this clearly, and that is where the movie Mirage Man comes in. It's really kind of about Richard Doty's experience in causing people to believe that UFOs and alien technology were being back engineered on certain Air Force bases, and so you could cause all these people to be looking over here and paying attention over here, and it also serves to deceive your enemies. In the late 40s, Carrion's claim, or his evidence, it shows that what was going on was, I covered this in the Strategic Deception show. It's too long to get into now, but it was definitely a government and military form of propaganda, but it wasn't necessarily aimed at fooling the American people so much as it was our adversaries. James Carrion said, I would have to say during the time I was in MUFON, when I first joined the organization, just like everybody else, I was curious. I wanted to know why this subject was still a mystery. The more I started to look into it, the more I started to research it, the higher that I got up in the organization, the more I could see that there was a large element of human deception involved. A lot of the cases, for example, that I've investigated personally during MUFON, there was nothing paranormal. There was no extraterrestrial aspect to a lot of it. A lot of it boiled down to strange people, passing strange stories, and people of questionable backgrounds, and really trying to spin the whole rumor mill around this subject. We get a lot of these strange characters that just pop into the UFO field. They make these grandiose claims, and none of it ever pans out. He says it mostly has to do with deception. I don't know if these folks that perpetrated it had a personal reason for doing it. They just wanted to go out there and perpetrate a hoax. If there was money attached to it, okay. Or if there was an intelligence agency aspect to it, well, there you go. Carrion says, all I know is it was human involvement and nothing highly strange about it. He says, I have to say something that I think a lot of people in ufology may not like to hear, and that is, I think the bottom line is there are folks that are in the field that call themselves ufologists, call themselves researchers, investigative journalists, whatever they want to call themselves, it doesn't really matter. But when their modus operandi is to perpetrate the mystery instead of solving it, then you have a big issue. We have a big problem because the mystery will never get resolved as long as these people are out there hawking their latest theories, their latest controversy for the sake of controversy. Casuistry, right? Or their latest witness or their latest lead investigation, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. But if you don't have a sincere interest in truth, if you're simply interested in making the rounds of the UFO talk circuit, then you're part of the problem, not the solution. Yeah, so Carrion has interesting guy. If you've ever watched the UFO shows on Discovery or whatever their History Channel, you've probably seen him. He's in a lot of the old shows when they go and they interview someone from MUFON. He was usually, so he's come to his senses. He's just followed the evidence where it led. Well, let's talk about the difference between facts and truths. Facts and truths are related, but they're not synonymous. The difference can be subtle, but in the age of deceit, you have to know the difference to survive in the public square. Facts are objective, verifiable pieces of information about reality. That's the first big point. Facts are pieces of information about reality. They are observable and measurable within the material world. So facts deal with the material world. All right. For example, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit at sea level. That's a fact. That's what we call a fact. Truth is different. Truth is a broader, more fundamental concept that encompasses facts, but also includes higher concepts like meaning, coherence, and ultimate reality. Truth is not just what you experience and observe. It's not merely empirical. Truth is also logical, moral, and spiritual. Jesus Christ said, John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That signifies from the scripture that truth is a transcendent reality that goes beyond facts. It goes beyond factuality. Why does this matter? It matters because facts are necessary for us to communicate and get things done, but facts are insufficient for understanding reality fully. All you've heard here have been just, assertions, asserted as fact. But you see, a set of facts without a proper interpretation, like this egg, what would be the proper interpretation? Well, it looks like an aerostat blimp. That's a more likely interpretation. But a set of facts without proper interpretation obviously can be misleading. People can and often do use facts selectively to construct false narratives. In fact, they use facts selectively to construct false realities. Facts can change, but truth is forever. This is the ultimate framework that gives meaning to facts. There are moral and spiritual truths that cannot be reduced to empirical observed facts. The statement, for example, murder is wrong. That is not an observable fact in the scientific sense. It's a moral truth. A fact might be true, but truth is larger than any collection of facts. Now, for example, if scientific knowledge evolves as new discoveries are made. So what was considered to be a scientific constant 50 years ago might not be today. I think some people, it's been said lately that the speed of light fluctuates, or it's not quite as constant as they had thought. I don't want to speak too much about that because it's not my area. But you know, is it really a constant? So maybe it's come into question lately. But the point though is that these kinds of facts can change as new information comes in, but absolute truth remains unchanged. It never changes. A biblical worldview honors truth as transcendent, personal, and divine. And as you saw in John 14:6, truth ultimately emanates from and is found in God. John 17:17, sanctify them in the truth, your word is truth. So facts alone, no matter how interesting or how often they're put out, do not lead to truth. Facts alone do not lead to truth. You need some kind of context, some kind of filter or lens for understanding these facts, for them to make sense. For example, the Pharisees. The Pharisees had all of the scriptural facts right before them, but they rejected the truth. You can read about that in John chapter 5. Also, truth is personal. Jesus is the embodiment of truth, meaning that truth is not just a concept, but truth is also a person. Now, this distinction is absolutely crucial, especially today, because whenever facts are allowed to supersede truth, almost anything can be justified as right and good and proper, as we've seen in these, in this crazy Soluna app here that we saw earlier, where they're teaching the kids to do rituals and spells or whatever. So it's become common to reduce truth down to just a collection of facts. Each side shoots their facts like a shotgun blast of ideas and statements that are almost impossible to respond to, rendering debate about crucial issues like gender, abortion, marriage, security, national security, or whether aliens from Bootes from the Bootes constellation are camping out in the Sonoran desert. It makes debate about these things almost impossible. We did a post a couple days ago called Jesus was not a refugee. So that statement, Jesus was a refugee, which comes out from He Gets His campaign. The statement, Jesus was a refugee, is offered as if it were a fact, or as if it were truth. As if it were truth. It's offered up as a fact, as if it is in service of the ultimate truth. There's also no doubt that the theologians responsible for allowing the claim to be marketed know the difference between the Son of God and a contemporary refugee. So that's another example of the statement and marketing tagline, Jesus was a refugee, being irresponsible and actually destructive to public discourse. How is a statement like that, or these reports, these whistleblowers, how is it that they are destructive to public discourse? It's because they irresponsibly are allowing for false assumptions to be made. In this case, about the Jesus was a refugee, they're allowing for false assumptions to be made about Christ by those who may not know any better. So you can say these things, and then the people out in the viewing audience, out in TV land, who might not know any better, will will make false assumptions about reality based on these claims, these fact claims. And so it degrades public discourse because it promotes inaccurate facts. We call that misinformation. And that confuses what it means. In this example, it confuses what it means to be a refugee in the modern context of nation states and international law with what it meant to be a lawful subject of the first century Roman Empire. And this obviously can be applied right to this issue. So it's justified to call this tactic out as an example of how facts can be manipulated to assert a false narrative about reality. This is so common in the socialism movement, or let's just, the communist movement, Marxism, right? The whole idea of deconstruction, Jacques Derrida, this is really what this is about, right? You can read a text and say, I believe it means this, and offer that as a fact, and it has nothing to do with the ultimate truth, but it's what you feel, it's what you believe. So belief, right or wrong belief, becomes supreme in this case. So if you apply this, for example, to the New Jersey drone debacle. Thought I had a visual of that. Well, if you apply this to the New Jersey drone incident of the last few months and the UFO UAP narrative, then you can begin to see how facts that have no basis in reality can be used to confuse or manipulate a person into accepting a fact. For example, the existence of unidentified aerial phenomenon, or the ET hypothesis, as support for a false reality, which is the presence of interplanetary aliens. Let me say that again. You can begin to see how how facts that have no basis in reality, which are offered, which are just constantly repeated, ultimately begin to confuse people. It's manipulative. People start accepting these facts, and in this case, they start to believe there's actually unidentified aerial phenomena that we don't know what they are. Physical craft that are breaking the laws of physics, they believe. And you accept that in support of a false reality, which would be that interplanetary aliens they do exist, and they're here, even though no one has ever seen or interacted with any of it. So truth includes facts, but truth transcends facts by placing them within their full meaning. Truth makes facts true or false. Facts don't determine what the ultimate truth is, you see. Facts just talk about truth. For example, as in the piece we put up the other day, to identify Jesus as a refugee in a modern legal and geopolitical sense violates the logical difference between truth and facts. It may reference certain facts, but it misrepresents them in a way that distorts truth. It distorts reality. And it happens in three key ways. Misleading interpretations that are factual but not truthful. Emotional manipulation, conflating pathos with logos. For example, the refugee label is used to elicit emotional reactions rather than to facilitate some kind of rational discourse. And that is a rhetorical strategy that exploits a person's it distorts their perception of the world. It can distort if they're not grounded in a true worldview, and they're not very comfortable, solid in what they know to be true and false and what doesn't matter, then these things can just lead them all over the place. And then you see things like, people become so confused. We see people out speaking to graves, we see, where did he go? There he is. See Dallin out here talking to the spirits.
So we were talking about regrets.
So you get this. This is what happens when people become so confused that they don't know what reality is. They believe that reality is something that we just decide what it is. Oh, I believe this is true, so I'm going to run with it. For example, in the Jesus was a refugee statement, it's a rhetorical strategy put out by a leftist organization, and it exploits the fact that Jesus' family fled danger to imply a false moral equivalence with the modern refugee crisis, you see. Two logical violations occur here. Equivocation fallacy, that's when you change the meaning of a term. You use it two different ways, right? And that would be like the term refugee. You're changing it from a contemporary legal status to a general term for someone who left home because of danger or because they wanted to. And the second one is the appeal to emotion fallacy. Argumentum ad passiones. Instead of proving the claim, it just appeals to sympathy, pulls your heartstrings by implying that rejecting the Jesus was a refugee narrative means you have no compassion, means you're not a good Christian, means you don't know the real Jesus. You should feel guilty and ashamed of yourself. So by blurring the distinction between fact and truth, this kind of rhetoric, this kind of just shotgunning of facts that do not serve the truth, obscures the real issue, obscures the true truth. It obscures what can be known about reality. The third way this is a problem is because it twists facts for political gain or for some sort of agenda. Manipulating the logical distinction between fact and truth serves as a political ruse rather than a faithful interpretation of Scripture. In the case of the refugee claim, it treats Jesus like a rhetorical tool rather than the sovereign Lord of history. So as Christians, you have to always be wary. Sorry, connection. Let me repeat that. So if I put this into a shorter video. Christians, you always have to be wary of such distortions as this. You have to be focused on proclaiming the real mission of Christ. Christ was not a refugee seeking asylum. Christ is the Savior who brought redemption to a fallen world. And in the case with this metaphysical nonsense, it's the same. We have to know the difference between facts and truth so that the name of Christ isn't dragged through the metaphysical mud. Okay, well, I've got a piece written called From Deism to Existentialism, The West's Journey to Confusion. It's a piece that I've written that explains how we got here. Why do so many people think like this today? It has to do with the rejection of the authority of God's revelation and the exaltation of man's unaided reason as the supreme authority. And that's driven Western culture over a couple hundred years, in America anyway, over a couple hundred years, particularly here in the United States. From where we started out to where Christianity was dominant at first in the colonies, and then as time went on, very soon, deism became strong. And so anyone who was in positions of authority or, it became more likely you have to reject the supernatural and that, or not the supernatural yet. You have to reject the authority and sufficiency of Scripture because we can't know those things, right? Because that's reason, right? We can't know these things that we don't see. deism, right? God created it, but he's not really involved with it. Then that leads into later on through the rise of science as more of a weapon than a mode of inquiry, moves on into naturalism and then into materialism, where the supernatural is rejected altogether. Logical positivism was a very short movement in philosophy that said there is no point in even talking about God or anything supernatural because it's nonsense. It's not. There is only matter. Now, what this ultimately did, and I'm talking about America right now. It led to nihilism. So we go from strong Christianity to, well, deism. So we're backing away from who God said he was. And then ultimately we get to where we reject the supernatural altogether. And then we end up in nihilism, because when you reject the supernatural altogether, eventually you just fall into nihilism. And that's a view that says there's no purpose whatsoever to mankind, to the earth, or to the universe. None of this is for any reason. It's just all random chance acting on matter. But this view is not sustainable, right? Nihilism is a view that's not sustainable. You can't live that out. No sane person can maintain a nihilistic worldview. So what happened? Well, when God-given desire for meaning, right? God has written eternity into our hearts. So we all have the desire for meaning and transcendence. We desire, we crave to see glory. That's been written into our hearts. But then we suppress the truth and we start seeking this glory and this transcendence in other ways. So when we went into materialism and naturalism and then nihilism became strong, we had the God is out, right? We've rejected all of that. So now we realize that we need more. You remember the quote earlier? Oh, we all know there's more to reality than they're telling us. This is a person who believes that you have to go to somebody to understand what true reality is. So in the past, whenever this urge for transcendence and this, the search for meaning began to burn in the hearts of those who had rejected God's divine revelation, then comes the new version of transcendence. Sorry, connection. So we have nihilism, nothing matters, there's no purpose. You can't live that out. So then you start searching for meaning somewhere else. You start looking for transcendence in other things other than God. And so this is where the existentialist movement was born, right? This is the attempt to reclaim individual meaning through choice and authenticity, right? And the existentialist movement largely rejected absolute truths and therefore led to even stranger perspectives on the nature of reality. So existentialism paved the way for the acceptance in the West of something like Eastern mysticism, which in a covert way is very strong right now in this wave. Right? What Dallin Spratt is doing here really is really rooted in Eastern mysticism. And it's an abomination in the scriptures. It's a pretty old practice, necromancy. So an airy Eastern mysticism, an airy-fairy version in the U.S. of metaphysical relativism. Metaphysical relativism means there is a supernatural realm out there, but we can't know anything about it, so we just have to, whatever I feel is right about it will be true. And so that worldview began to grow and really got traction by the latter part of the 19th century, the 1800s. And so this would turn out to be the perfect petri dish for the proliferation of something like we see now, this UFO, this ET hypothesis, UFOs as interplanetary alien narratives, and the rise of, also the rise of psychonauts. Psychonauts are people who believe that neurotoxins, neurotoxic substances, when you ingest them like ayahuasca and DMT, can help pierce the veil of the unseen world. Now, when you trip on that stuff, you don't know what you're seeing. You don't know if that's the unseen world or if that's just visual hallucinations. You don't, But again, you see, we've rejected truth, and we just carry around a big sack of facts now, and we pull out the facts that we like that affirm what we think we want to do. I want to go to ayahuasca and do a ceremony. Why? Well, because of these facts in here. This guy said this happened to him, and this guy said this happened to him, and I'd like for that to happen to me. Never mind the reports where the people in there died or have had these horrible experiences, either with DMT or meditation. There's a video on this channel about the dangers of meditation, transcendental meditation. Again, transcendental meditation is another example, of Eastern mysticism and how it has worked its way into our culture in a syncretistic culture. UFOs and LSD. Aliens and ayahuasca. Once taboo, these ideas found a ready following among 20th century Americans who lacked a coherent epistemology. That means they lacked a coherent method for finding truth, for discerning truth. And they also, as Americans became more prosperous and had lots of time on their hands, well, that was a mixture that was apt to lead to what we see today. These philosophical shifts and religious, spiritual shifts away from a solid grounding in eternal truth have left millions of Americans and other Westerners spiritually and intellectually confused and weakened. I would say that this is an example of someone who is spiritually and intellectually confused and weakened, unable to discern truth, and because of that is vulnerable to the wiles of the deceiver. Same thing with Mr. Coulthard. And, the messages that we heard from the whistleblower about his spiritual experience with the aliens. So this is an article that I hope to put up sometime soon. So just to finish up, we live in a culture that is desperately searching for meaning in all the wrong places, right? But they're unwilling to submit to the truth of God's revelation. The true God, there are a lot of people talking about God today, but it has little to nothing to do with the one true and living God. So, spiritually adrift, intellectually vulnerable. Modern society is plagued by confusion. The Bible warned us of this decline. In Romans 1, they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. So without the foundation of divine revelation, people lack the discernment to distinguish truth from error, and they fall prey to fallacious worldviews that provide temporary comfort but will fail to address the deepest needs of the soul. And that's sad, but that's what we're here for, brothers and sisters. That's what the Great Commission is about. It's about calling people to repentance, calling people to the truth. So, and because the answers that these folks are seeking are not going to be found where they're looking. These answers are not found in mystical experiences, conjured mystical experiences. You cannot find any meaning about life sitting in a graveyard convincing yourself that you're talking to spirits. You can't find any meaning to your life by listening to this guy or and all of this UFO, UAP narrative. You're never going to find anything of substance in this. The answers that they seek are not found where they're looking. They're not found in altered states of consciousness. They're not found in cosmic speculation. The answers that they find, that they need, what they're actually looking for, what they need, is found in the clear, unchanging, eternal, overarching, absolute, transcendent truth, which is represented in the unchanging revelation of God's special revelation. In other words, His revealed word, what we call the Bible today, the 66 books of the canon. True transcendence and meaning are not self-generated, but they're divinely given. For by grace you've been saved through faith. And this is not your doing. It's the gift of God, so that no one may boast. The gospel of Jesus Christ alone offers the clarity and the hope and the purpose that people like this and all of humanity so desperately seeks. So, to finish up, the truth is not out there. All relevant truth has been revealed to mankind in the divine special revelation of the Bible, where the God of the universe, the God of all creation, speaks with clarity, power, and love. The answers to all of your questions are not within, but they are within your reach. All right, my friends, thank you very much. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow with Daniel from Daniel Apologetics, as we will be talking about his new book on divine hiddenness. I'll give you just a quick preview of that, because I think this is going to be excellent. Have you ever struggled with why God doesn't answer your prayers? Have you ever struggled with why does God allow so much suffering in the world? If connection issues. So, if God exists and if God is good, and if He desires a relationship with His creatures, why does He not make His existence more obvious? Now, this is obviously a question that comes from outside of the faith, but there's also concerns within the faith about the presence of God. These questions represent one of the most persistent challenges to classical theism, or the basic belief in God, commonly referred to as divine hiddenness. Isaiah 45:15 says, "Truly, you are a God who hides Himself, O God of Israel, the Savior." Now, this verse is really talking more about the fact that God is incomprehensible, and in all of His attributes are. We don't know all of His attributes. We just know all of His attributes that apply to the material realm and a little bit of the spiritual realm. Historically, theologians and philosophers have referred to this issue, divine hiddenness, or, why can't we see God? They've referred to it by several other terms or concepts: the silence of God, the problem of divine accessibility. The eclipse of God is another, which is the title of Erwin Lutzer's new book, which I would recommend for anyone who wants to understand why our culture is so crazy, so depraved and debauched, so confused. That book does it. So we'll be on with Daniel. He's written a book about this topic, and it's good. It's excellent, and we want to help promote that. And our discussion about it, we pray would be edifying, would be fruitful, and would be edifying for you. Isaiah 59, 1 and 2. Behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened, that it cannot save, or his ear dull, that it cannot hear. But your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God, and your sins have hidden his face from you, so that he does not hear. So the fault, whenever people complain because they can't see God or that he's not present, that's not the fault of God. That is the fault that's our fault. The path of the righteous is like the light of the morning sun, which shines brighter and brighter until the full day. So the path of the righteous gets brighter and brighter. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. Proverbs 4, 18 and 19. How about that? The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They don't know what they're stumbling over. And that explains perfectly what we've seen in these examples here tonight. God bless you, my friends. We'll see you next time.
We'll be right back.